The December 2019 meeting of the City of Scranton Zoning Hearing Board will now come to order. Will the secretary please take roll?
Ms. Newcomb?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Gattens?
Here.
Mr. Chairman?
Here, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. In accordance with the Pennsylvania State Sunshine Law, this board shall render its decision on each case either at the end of each hearing or within 45 days of the hearing. If you are to give testimony in a case, please come to the podium, raise your right hand, and wait to be sworn in. After being sworn in, state your name and address and proceed with your testimony. Also, anyone giving testimony who does not become a party to the case may obtain a written decision from the zoning office. I also have two announcements of law. If you are granted a variance or a special exception, you must wait 30 days from the date of our decision to obtain the necessary permits to start work. However, you may obtain a permit sooner by signing a waiver that any work done during that 30-day period is at your own risk. A favorable decision by this board shall expire 12 months from the date of said authorization in accordance with Section 111I of the zoning ordinance. If you have failed to obtain the necessary permits or do not comply with any or all conditions of said authorization, you must seek an extension. Is there any remarks?
Yeah, just one thing. Don, we mentioned this a while ago, that tent that we talked about on South Dewey Avenue, that's been up for over a year, is still up. And the guys, I know, are very uncooperative, but what's right for one should be right for another. That's all I have.
Don, the testament and verification of postings?
I swear that they've been posted and advertised.
Okay. Number 7 has been continued till next month. This is going to be the final continuance, correct, Dan?
If they request further continuances, that they have to reapply or
Okay.
pay an additional fee.
Please call the first case.
Case number 1, Rashida Lovely seeks variance to use property as a community center on first floor and 3 units on upper floors at 1818 Jackson Street, R2 zone.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Name and address, please.
Rashida Lovely, 2001 Greenridge Street, Dunmore, PA, 18512.
Thank you.
So I purchased the property on 1818 Jackson Street, and under my understanding, it seemed like it was a commercial space. So when I entered the property, I realized the first floor was a bar and a hall. On the second floor, there were 2 dwellings, apartments, on the second floor. So what I wanted to do was use the first floor as a community space and keep the upstairs as a residential. So basically just restoring it to kind of the way it was, minus the bar, of course.
Well, what do you mean by community space?
So I teach children dance and art and science, specifically science in the summertime, so STEAM. And I needed a space where I could keep the children, and continue teaching them. And the property fit what I needed because it also has a very large yard, so I could teach them horticulture. And so, like I said, just continue teaching them the way I was before.
Actually, a community center is a permitted use in this zone. And a community center does talk about a non-commercial use that exists for leisure or educational activities and programs. I think it's the residential units that was the reason for Mr. King's denial.
So would we have to take in for the parking for this community space?
I would think we should.
How many,
I'm
let's
sorry.
back up. How many employees you're going to have in that community center?
Well, it depends on how many children we have. It varies from year to year.
Give me a ballpark number.
Okay, so as an example, if I teach in the summertime, if I teach STEAM, if I have about roughly 30-something children, I'll have about 4 teachers, including myself.
And how many parents stay with the children?
We have some parent volunteers, but mostly the parents don't stay.
So it'll be a pickup and drop off.
Yes.
Where's your parking?
Oh, right now, there isn't any parking besides on the street, so parking will have to be put together in the, on the,
We need to see it.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean,
It's,
right now, I'm not able to do anything as of yet. I'm kind of in limbo, so.
Your approval for the community center as well as the apartments upstairs depends on your parking, available parking. So I'm looking at an application, I'm sure the rest of the board sees the same thing, that without a parking plan, it's not good, you know?
Well, I mean, the way that it's set up right now is just a driveway and a lot, so.
That's not going to get to yet with it. So we're looking at your lot, and I see it, and I'll speak for the rest of the board, I'm sure they see you have a large yard in the back, and that
Yes.
lot next to you is your lot.
Yes.
So is your plans to open that up to get to the driveway so you can put park in the back?
Yes, the area directly next to the building will be where the parking goes.
Okay, are you going to go to the large area behind the building?
No, that will be used for the children and for activities.
So without a parking plan and looking at an overhead view, I can't tell how many parking spots you'll actually fit in there without measurements and everything.
Okay.
I'd be more comfortable voting on this going forward if we had some kind of plan in front of us.
Okay.
So you need 4.5 spots, am I correct, for the apartments, 3 apartments?
If she's asking for 3 apartments,
I am not. I'm only asking for 2
2
apartments. There's 2 dwellings on the second floor.
Okay.
So 3.5. And we don't need no parking for the community lot because of the
Yes,
the
yes, we do.
usage?
yeah, the community center, it requires 1 for every 300 square feet. Do you know how much square feet you have for your teaching in the community center part?
As far as the building is concerned? Yes. So the space that we want to use is 18 by 50, so roughly 900 square feet. And then the other area is 800 square feet, and this is on the first floor.
So that's an additional close to 6 spots. You said 1 spot for every 300 square feet, Dan?
1 for every 300, so that
So
the,
that's almost another 6 spots
yeah, so you'd,
on top of the 3.5 for the residential.
well, 3 for the residential, 3 for the 900 square feet part, and what was the other part that you said?
You said 800 square feet for something?
Oh, yes. So the other area, the outside of that initial community space is an additional 800 feet. So the area that I'll be teaching is 900 square feet.
Okay. You're not going to be teaching in the other 800?
No.
Is that where your office is going to be and stuff?
Actually, no. That's why I want to hold the incubator space for the children in the summer months.
So, Don, why was the permits denied?
Well, the permit was denied because when the permit application came in, it said three units, and I had no evidence that it was 3 units. It wasn't registered as 3. So Ms. Lovely came back in and amended her application and changed it to 1, I think, or 1 or 2 in the permits were ultimately issued. But she wanted to go forward with the community center and
Okay.
making sure that the 2 apartments upstairs
Yeah, 'cause
were all legal.
There's only 2 meter, or 3 meter bases on the structure right now. They're new meter bases, so I'd probably go along with the 2 units upstairs.
Yeah, in the
community
first
center.
floor.
Yes, there were 3 meters initially, 1 for the first floor and 2 for upstairs, but they weren't ran. I guess they took them out and put in 1. They had everything run into one meter.
So I would recommend that you would table this for tonight and maybe go back and maybe possibly get a surveyor to survey your land there and see what kind of parking plan you can come up with to provide to us so we can see what kind of parking you have off-street.
Okay.
Yeah, the room is there, we just need to see it laid out.
Right, it looks like the lot's big enough to do it.
Yeah.
You just
It
have
is.
to show the board that you can do it.
Okay.
Are you okay with that idea?
Yes. Would I need to come back for another meeting to have this done, or can I just deliver this to the office?
No, you'd have to ask for another meeting.
You'd have to deliver the paperwork with the plan to the office so we can
So we
get it
can vote-
before the meeting.
And, yeah, and then vote on it at a meeting.
And then you would come back the following month, or however long if it took you 2 months, then you would come back 2 months from now.
Okay.
But you'd have to request it,
Yeah, you're gonna have
and
to,
we'd have to approve it.
you have to request
All right, let's-
tonight that you want to table it.
Let's talk about how many parking spaces she
Yeah,
needs.
I was gonna say, let's talk about that.
Let's do
before.
that first.
Yeah.
So,
So she needs
6.
well, she needs
3 for upstairs.
3 for upstairs,
Right. She has 4 employees.
three for the 900
All
square
the
foot
employees.
spot.
6.
And is the 900 square foot spot and the 800 square
800
foot
square
spot,
foot.
are they going to be used at the same time?
Yes.
Possibly?
Yes.
Okay, so we need another 2 for there, plus 1 for employees, so we're talking about
9,
3, 6, 8, 12.
12. It's gonna have to be on one side.
Is that what you said? 12 is what?
I'm getting 12, yeah.
Okay. So you roughly have an idea. You're going to need around 12 off-street parking spots if you want to tell the guy that's going to lay this out for you, so you can kind of come up with a game plan.
Okay. Thank you.
And usually they'll know what size spots and, you know, what angles they have to be at and everything to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to that parking there too, so. We go with all that?
So you just got to request a continuance from us.
Okay. I don't even know how I'm supposed
Just
to
say
do that.
just say that I request,
Okay, so I requested continuance.
okay, I'll make a motion to continue.
I'll second.
Ms. Newcomb?
Yes,
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. So you've been continued to a further date.
Thank
Best
you.
thing is contact Mr. King.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll work with you and get everything done and get a date set for next month, whatever.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Take care.
Call the next case, please.
Shauna Gemento seeks variance to construct a personal use garage at 211 Larch Street, R2 zone.
Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Name and address?
Shauna Gemento, and my personal address is 1305 Penn Ave, Scranton, PA 18509.
You may proceed.
We're looking to construct a 24 by 24 foot two-car garage on a lot we own on Larch Street. It was a parking lot for AAA Trouser Company, and my parents purchased it about 5 years ago and put it in their daughters' names, and I'm one of their daughters. And so it does border onto properties that I own and that my parents own. So it's like a little square. So it'd be a personal use garage.
Is your house the one right around the corner? Do you own that house right around the corner?
That's
I
my
think it's-
parents' house. The one on the corner is my parents' house, and I live right next door to them.
So are you just looking for some storage, or what are you looking to do with the garage?
Yeah, storage and for winter keep for the car.
No repairs of any kind?
No, none.
my copy is kind of hard
It's-
to read.
yeah, it's very
Hard to
light.
read. So if you can just,
It's a 40 by 90 foot lot.
how high?
Oh, it's 22, I think 22 feet high. It's only one-story garage. You could see it up on Route 6. They have a display model. It's one of the Route 6 already made garages.
You're going to enter off Lark Street?
No,
Yes. And there is a cutout because it used to be a parking lot.
Yep.
It's not going to be a metal, what is, what?
No, it's going to be 6 foot on one side
Oh,
and 10
charcoal
foot on the
gray.
other.
I just want to make sure it wasn't a metal, one of those metal storage
No,
things.
it's a wooden construction.
Is there anybody in the audience that wants to give testimony on this case?
Yeah, they bought that lot.
Okay, there's not.
Bought this lot. The parents live here. She lives
I'll make a motion, we
They own
vote?
that whole corner now.
I'll second.
Ms. Newcomb?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, vote of 5-0, you've been approved. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the next case, please.
Case number 3, Keystone Mission seeks variance to convert building to 50-bed homeless shelter with day center and support services for the homeless. 529-531 Wyoming Avenue, Light Industrial Zone.
Are you an attorney, sir? or-
What was
Are you
that?
Are you an attorney?
I'm the executive director.
Okay. Could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address?
Justin Behrens, my home address is 2 Oak Drive, Mountaintop, Pennsylvania. Say it again. 2 Oak, as in the tree, Drive, Mountaintop, Pennsylvania, 18707.
Thank you.
Behrens, Behrens.
Thank you.
Yep. So Keystone Mission is looking to buy the property there on Wyoming Avenue at 529, 531, and we're looking to put a 50-bed homeless shelter along with a day center so that we can continue transition for individuals that are homeless back into society so they can become productive. We're also looking to do life skills and job training while we're there so that they can get substantial jobs also.
Is this going to be a 24-hour-a-day operation out of that building?
That is correct.
It'll be staffed for 24 hours?
That is correct.
How much staff will you have in there for that 24 hours?
For the 24 hours, it's going to be about 14 staff members.
How many per shift?
Per shift would be, at nighttime, there would be 2 full-time staff members there, and during the day, there would be 2, but there's also other staff members, administration in there. The 2 staff members at night would be the ones that would oversee to make sure that there's no issues there.
And it's an open-door policy, they can come and go, the clients can come and go?
That is correct.
I just have a little bit, couple concerns. I know you had problems down where you are with the neighbors, with the clientele being out there in the daytime and stuff like that, or nighttime, whenever it was. How can you remedy that on Wyoming Avenue?
So we are actually going to have, first of all, that was a residential area, and I understand, and that's one of the reasons why we looked at this location. To take care of that, we are going to actually have security. We're going to use private security force to be there for security reasons. Along with that, there's going to be strict guidelines to follow at the mission. The loitering, we're not going to allow loitering. They're going to have to come into the building. They're going to have to follow the rules that we have set forth for the transition and for them to get themselves better.
Is there any way you could possibly look at putting in an area like behind the building? I don't know if you own that, you're going to buy that lot next to the building, of just say like a patio type area where they can congregate there. I mean, I understand, I mean, they don't have any place to go or anything, but it became a major problem on Olive Street. And one of the remarks that you made, or the previous administrator made, was when they're outside that building, they can't control them. And that's a concern to me, is the same thing going to follow you there? Because there are businesses on that block there. So, I mean, if there's some way that you could put an area like, where they can sit and smoke or whatever, you know, they want to do, that it's not on the main street. It's someplace that's off the street, but it's safe for them as well.
So we actually discussed that just this past week, similar to what you were just saying, a patio or an area where they can, I guess you would say like your back door porch area where they can sit, relax, enjoy the weather that's out there, that type of environment. A barbecue, you know, if they want to barbecue outside.
Because I think, and I'll say this to the board, one of the contingencies I like to see put on this prior to a vote would be that there has to be something there. Because I did speak to some of your neighbors there, and their concern was the follow-up of what happened on Olive Street. No one seemed against it, but they had that concern because they do have a business and everything.
100% I agree.
Okay.
Have you ever, I mean, I agree, definitely, the city is in desperate need of some place to put the homeless, but have you looked into, like, comparing your proposed use to any other, like, homeless shelters in the area, like Salvation Army or anything, to get some ideas as what you could do to, as he's saying, the congregation area?
So
'Cause
our reference board that we use is Citygate, which is actually a nationally run program that they are like our advisors. They kind of tell us, hey, this is what's going nationally, this is what we use nationally. I've toured York Mission, which is in York, Pennsylvania. I've toured Water Street Mission, which is in Lancaster. I've toured Bethesda, which is in Harrisburg, and I got ideas from them too. And of course, they all have their problems that they talk about. That they said, "Hey, this is how we made it better. This is how we move forward." So I've reached out to those individuals who are actually going to be like our council or be our advisors to say, "Hey, listen, this is what we suggest to do further."
Don, with Mr. Gatton's proposal in mind, do we have a parking requirement?
I don't know that, as far as I know, there is no parking requirement for a homeless shelter in our ordinance.
Would that come under similar to a community center?
I looked at 402.21, talks about parking.
The reason I ask is if we don't, I think that's going to leave room for that to happen.
All right, under parking under 402.21, which is actually a group home, but
Yeah.
something similar.
Yep.
One off-street parking space for each employee on duty at any one time, and for every 2 residents of a type reasonably expected to be capable of driving a vehicle.
So I think it's safe to say that the clientele will not be driving to us. I think, I mean,
I'm
I don't mean
assuming-
disrespect or
I'm
anything like
assuming
that,
that.
but I mean, I think it's just a normal assumption. And how many employees, like, at the
So
max?
we were looking at actually there would be about 30 parking spots.
So if you're holding parking spots, where would you put this patio that we're talking about, or congregation area?
So because it comes with that lot that's open on the side.
Okay, so
that's
that is
there,
your lot then?
That is the lot too. So not
Okay.
just the building, but the lot next to it where the gate, that wooden gate is.
Yep.
That whole property all the way back there that's open would also be too.
Would that be made a private area, like from the street?
And that, exactly, yes.
Okay.
Now, you're saying you have private security. How far will they handle the problem, and will they be willing to call the Scranton Police when necessary?
100%. We actually, presently right now, we're using Scranton Police as we speak to help us out. And the companies that we're looking for, obviously, we're looking for a company that will definitely work with the police because we have a great relationship with the police department here.
I just don't want to see a case where the security department doesn't want to call attention to a problem, you know, and hesitates calling if there's a problem there. Essentially, we don't want to see your clients get hurt, and we definitely don't want to see anyone on the street get hurt.
Since taking over as executive director, one of the big things is I'm very proactive than reactive.
Good,
So,
good.
And you said you're going to remedy the solution the same way? You're going to,
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
you're going to remedy the solution on Olive Street the same way you're going to,
So, what we're going to do with Olive Street?
Yeah.
So, that's the great thing about this, is that Olive Street will no longer, the homeless will be going there.
Okay.
That will be actually like our market or our food produce, which will be for low-income families that are one paycheck away from being homeless, or those that are in need. It's going to be open to them, so there will be no need for any homeless to be in Olive Street whatsoever.
What's your time frame from, if the board approves it, to opening it?
We're looking at 18 months.
Okay.
And you'll occupy that whole building?
I'm sorry.
You'll occupy the whole building?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I have hard hearing.
and did you mention that it was going to be a 24-hour walk-in service, like a homeless can walk in at any time during the day, or will there be a time of day allotted where A person can walk in and say, I need a bed, or,
So again, we follow what Citygate, their guidelines of how people have done it in the past in other areas. So there's an intake process, which is a screening process, so that we make sure that they're going to be safe to our guests that are staying there, along with the society in itself too, in the community.
curious about the time, though, of the day that you're going to allow somebody to reserve it.
If they're going to come in, they would have to come in strictly during business hours to check in, process, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
With the one only exception would be for the hospital settings. Individuals that are at the hospital that just come in, come in for a reason to just, and I hate to use the word bog down the system, that they're just there because they're trying to get a warm place to stay, or they're trying to get food, or whatever it is. We're going to work close with the hospitals in the area to say, hey, listen, we'll come help get them, bring them back to us, and then process them in the next day.
So how long can they stay there?
So the way that we have it set up is every individual is different in the way they transition and they go through, as long as they're progressing and they're moving forward and not stepping back. So therefore, if they're starting to attend our programs and doing the life skills training that they need, if they're attending the trade schools and doing, bettering themselves that way, they can stay there until they're better to get themselves on their feet. One thing we've noticed is that it takes time for them to get their services from the government in there. Once we know that they're okay, we're going to move forward to get them rapid housing, because that's one of the big terms that they want, is the rapid housing. And then the caveat to that whole piece is we're going to follow them on the outside to make sure that they continue to stay okay in the housing that they have, because we know that they have issues of paying the paycheck, making sure that the mortgage is on time, and we don't want them to slip up. We want them to be successful so that they're putting back into the system with taxes and everything else that they're working.
How about medications? No medications handled in this building?
Medications will be handled by the individuals themselves and will not be handled by us. So just like you and I get from the doctor,
Right.
whatever the prescription is that's what it'd be. Everything would be locked up. So they would have to, we don't touch the medication. They would have to go to the lockup to get their medication.
So who controls that lockbox then?
That would be the staff.
Okay.
But we do not touch the medication. They'd have to go in to their...
So
cubby hole.
each individual have their own
Correct.
lockbox?
Each their own lockbox. Everyone would have their own locker. Everyone would have their own dresser, and then their own bed.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that wants to give testimony on this case?
My name is Attorney William Jones. I'm representing several of the property owners.
We're just going to ask you to get to a microphone if you could, please.
For the purposes of is this on now, Donnie? Yeah, it's on. Okay. For the purposes of the record, my name is Attorney William T. Jones. I represent several of the property owners on the 5 and 600 block of Wyoming Avenue. I have several questions for the witness. I presume he was sworn. Was the gentleman sworn?
I don't think that's working, Don.
I don't think it is either.
I'm not sure any of these are working. I don't think mine's
Yeah.
working either.
What?
Yeah, I could.
Not working out here, though.
He said it's working in there, so continue to use it if you
Oh,
will.
okay. All righty.
Okay.
If I can, with regard to the particular neighborhood, I represent the owners that have Battaglia Sporting Goods. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that that's a retail operation on the first floor?
At the location you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
All righty. And on the upper floors, do they also have batting cages and coaching for minor children? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of what's in the building. I know that there's a retail store. I didn't know that there was, but yes.
Have you ever seen any children dropped off on that particular area with sports equipment, bats, balls, to go to the third floor batting cages?
No, sir, I'm not. And I'm not from the Scranton area, so.
Oh, so you're not familiar with the neighborhood. I appreciate that. With regard to the particular structure you're talking about, is there a recently renovated building next door to it that contains a nail salon?
Yes.
Alrighty. And would you say that was a substantial investment? Does it look like it's fairly new?
It's in the retail store, yes.
All right, and next to Battaglia's, Tom's Garage, are you familiar with that?
I see that one too.
And the gentleman is here tonight, that's also a client of mine. With regard to that, have you seen retail trade there, people come and go from his establishment?
I haven't physically seen it, but
Okay.
it's there, so.
All right, are you familiar that Lackawanna College, and they're represented here this evening also, that they have a dormitory catty corner to this particular property?
Yes.
All righty, and have you done any studies with regard to the effect that this facility will have on any of the retail establishments in that area?
As in if it would lower people going to that area? Or?
Any effect whatsoever, positive or negative?
I can tell you from other missions that we've talked to in the
No,
area.
Rather than speculate, have you done any studies with regard
No,
to...
we haven't done any studies.
All righty. With regard to the age of the persons that attend Lackawanna, do you have any information this evening with regard to the age of those students that are across the street from this facility?
No.
Now, with regard to this particular property, and if you're not familiar, I understand that, it appears that there's a retail renaissance or a residential renaissance. Are you familiar with and this board granted certain variances for I think it's a 39-unit residential complex for the medical school students in the adjacent block?
No, I
No.
didn't know that.
All righty. Do you see a lot of new activity in the 500 and 600 block of Wyoming Avenue with regard to businesses?
I mean, yeah, I see there's an area there.
Now, you mentioned where you're down on Olive Street. Are you aware that that's in the IL district?
The one on Olive?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Okay, and this is in the same IL district, is that correct?
Yes.
All righty. Now, with regard to the facility on Olive Street, are you aware that this board denied a use variance for that particular facility?
No.
What I would like to make part of the record is the findings of fact and conclusions of law by the City of Scranton Zoning Hearing Board with regard to application number Z050067. Additionally, then that was appealed to the Court of Common Pleas to number 05CV5159, and then it went up to the Commonwealth Court, and that would be number 1598 CD 2006. So I take it you're unaware that the zoning hearing board was upheld in their denial of a use variance in the IL district for, I believe it was a 70-bed facility back in 2005?
No, I did not.
Let me just straighten out the record a little bit.
Go right ahead.
At that point, what was pending before the board in the case that you're citing was an interpretation as to whether or not the homeless mission qualified as a place of worship. They were trying to get in, without getting a variance to qualify as a place of worship, they wouldn't need a variance. So the interpretation was whether it was a place of worship, and I took that personally up to the...
If I can, just because, and I'll let you peruse the documents, there was actually, with regard to that, and there was a double vote that evening, and it was upheld by the courts. One is exactly what Attorney Penatar stated. The other one was on a variance itself, a use variance. So there were two.
What was appealed to the Commonwealth Court was the interpretation. And we not only appealed it to the Commonwealth Court, in an unusual situation, heard it en banc. They had all 9 members hear the case because they felt it was that important a question. But it was what was on appeal of the Commonwealth Court was whether or not it qualified as a place of worship.
That's true, but the appeal to, and I have it here for Attorney Penatar, the appeal to the Court of Common Pleas, actually you were upheld in your denial of the actual vote on the variance itself. So I would ask that they be made part of the record as objectors number 1. I would rather than give it directly to the stenographer, I'm going to give it to Attorney Penatar. He could tender it if I may have a moment.
I actually have it.
Oh, you do get both? Okay. So do you have any other witnesses this evening?
No, Your Honor. Or no.
No.
Sorry, not Your
No,
Honor.
I didn't get a,
Hopefully you become a judge.
I didn't get a promotion. Are you familiar with the fact that by file council number 66 of 1998, the homeless shelters are allowed in the CD district as a special exception?
So, no, I did not know that, but so the reason I approached the city of Scranton, I asked them exactly what I needed to do to become a homeless shelter, and I was guided by the city exactly what to do.
I appreciate that. So you would need, what I'm struggling with here, gentlemen, is obviously what I presume the gentleman is doing, although you can't discern it from the ad, is looking for a use variance, and he must also be looking for certain other dimensional variances with regard to your 600 square feet for each particular of the 50 individuals that would be in there, and the other criteria for special exception. So I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I do know what he needs. He would need both a variance, and he's going to need a series of dimensional variances, none of which have been articulated here. Additionally, what I would call your attention to is the criteria under both the MPC and your own ordinance that requires that this particular building, the building itself, that it cannot function for the uses that are allowed in the IL district or what have been grandfathered in there by way of, and we'll have additional testimony. What you have is the major thoroughfare into the city of Scranton. It's 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out. That's Wyoming Avenue. Maybe in large part with some of your votes, if you recall, you actually denied a similar type of use on the corner for the old hotel building, and that has since been renovated. Additionally, because I was the one objecting to it, you now have, I'm going to say that fellow put in between $2 and $3 million renovating it for the down near the Colors building. That other person came in here and they wanted to put in a similar type of use, and you said no to that, and then the city benefited by that because now you have a large investment. I don't know if the gentleman, and I know that they are also here and they have contacted us with regard to their objections. I don't know if they would have invested. They bought 3 buildings. They renovated the one, they took down the Colors building. We all saw that, you know, it's for the parking, and they've, even through this cold weather, have renovated Friedman's. So we're seeing a substantial investment in this block. Mr. Nicholas is also here. He owns 2 buildings, and his family has owned that for, I don't know, 80 to maybe 110 years. Always never retreated, always pays their taxes on time, always renovates it, always has everything going with it. Same thing with Battaglia's. Also has it. We're all aware that my children went there, and we know what goes in there. It's a drop-off area. You have the college. The college is here, and I'm sure that they'll, everybody sees the use. The city of Scranton put this in a particular zone where it can be accommodated, not into the retail areas that are actually going through a renaissance. You know, one of the few areas of the city of Scranton, my office is within 3 blocks of this. And, you know, I put in a fair amount of money for it, too. So I applaud you for your other decisions that have done this. But just as a matter of law, you have the homeless shelters allowed in a CD district. In order for a use variance, which I haven't heard any testimony on, you would have to go over a very large threshold. You also have your dimensional variances that have to go in there. But I haven't heard anything with regard to the uniqueness of the building that it's going into, why it can't be used for the uses in the IL district, why we're having everybody put money into those particular uses. So there's absolutely no grounds with regard to that. That's my portion of the cross-examination. I also have a series of witnesses that Mr. Verzali is here. He's a planner. You've acknowledged him to be an expert in this field. He has over 30 years' experience, and he can also add some other testimony with regard to that when it's our turn to proceed. So, with that, I have no further questions for the witness, and I would turn it back to the chair.
Is there anyone else that wants to give testimony in this case?
I'd like to question the witness, Mr. Bush. It's Jamie Hailstone, and I represent Lackawanna College. I did that. The college is aware that homelessness is an issue. We're keen to that. We've got students who struggle with these issues. The college is also aware that this particular area has been cleaned up to the point where we do not believe that this is the correct use for this building, and we are neighbors. And I'd like to ask you, Mr. Behrens, am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's fine.
You mentioned that you had spoken to representatives from the city and gotten information about how to put together your application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they gave you, one of those things was you had to give notice to adjacent properties. Isn't that correct?
They give notice to the adjacent properties.
So you did not prepare any list?
So I did reach out to your school. I did talk to your facility. I asked to speak to your president. The administrative assistant said that she related to them. She also spoke to other people. So I did reach out to your university.
But my question was, with regard to the notice requirement, did you have anything to do with notice being delivered to people who were adjacent to the property?
That's not my response. That was the responsibility of this.
If I can just interject for the purposes of the record, your ordinance clearly states
Yeah,
that the applicant is to provide the names of all the adjacent properties.
We're aware of that.
To the city of Scranton. Your acting zoning officer always goes above and beyond the call of duty with regard to that, but the ordinance itself, and Mr. Hailstone's being polite, maybe they don't share the same characteristics, that particular burden is on the applicant to supply that to the city.
It does look like there's a list of names in here that was.
Mr. Hailstone, Mr. Jones, I told the applicant I would prepare that list for him from the tax records.
Okay. And you're aware that Lackawanna College did not get a notice?
I did, because I prepared the list, I did send the notice. It was just addressed to Lackawanna College at was it 500 or 501 Vine Street? I don't recall
But the list that
the list in our computer had to, but when I was there posting, I saw the signs for Lackawanna, so I crossed those names. When I did the actual mailings, I didn't mail to the persons, I mailed to the college.
Okay. So the list that was attached does not reflect who was notified?
Correct.
Because I will tell you that
Yeah.
my client did not receive notice, but it might have gotten lost in the mail or something. Now, Mr. Behrens, you also mentioned that you would have 2 staff at night plus security personnel. What company are you going to contract with for security personnel?
We would be searching for a company that would give us.
And you also mentioned that you're going to have an open door policy so people can come and go at night, in the middle of the night, middle of the day, correct?
I didn't. At night, they would not be leaving. That's where they're going to stay at night. But during the day, they can come and go, but with a checkout policy. Like they would tell the staff where they're going.
Okay. And on top of security personnel, you would have 2 staff members there at night?
Say that one more time.
On top of security personnel, you would also have 2 staff members there at night?
That's correct.
And this would all be funded how?
We are funded by private donors.
That's all I have at this moment.
If I can, leave with in one moment. As far as you know, there's nothing with regard to the building that you're proposing why that can't be used for the uses in the IL district.
I'm sorry, say that again.
With regard to the building that you're proposing to move this program into, you know of no restrictions in the building that it can't be used for the uses that are already permitted in an IL district. Is that correct?
So no restrictions? No.
No, you don't know of any restrictions on
No.
the building. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
My name is Jim Nicholas.
Could you raise your right hand, please?
Sorry.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you
Yes,
God?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Jim Nicholas. I live at Glenburn Road in Clark Summit. I own the adjacent building to this building. A little history. My grandfather built that building in 1916. So we have been in business in that block for 103 years. We own that building, and we own 601, which is DG Nicholas Auto Parts. So we have a big investment in that. The building adjacent to this is fully rented as a commercial building, up to date, code-wise, everything. And we rented to commercial tenants, and I'm very concerned about that because in the past we've had some issues. There was a drop-in center in that block, and controlling loitering is impossible unless you have the police there all day long. People are going to walk out on the sidewalk and they're going to have the attitude, I can do what I want, I'm on a public sidewalk, and that's where usually the trouble begins. And we've witnessed it for years when that facility was there. That has now moved over to Linden Street in Scranton. I'm just concerned about all the trouble I heard about down on Olive Street, just moving 2 blocks up to where we are. And this is very concerning to me. I've been listening to about the parking requirements. I'm sorry to say, there's not enough space there for 30 cars behind your building. I own the warehouse next to it. I own the warehouse across the street in the alley. If somebody wants to go and measure that, there's no space for a patio, a smoking lounge, and 30 cars. It just isn't there. So you're not going to achieve that for the employees. And if some of these homeless people have a car, how can you restrict them? I mean, homeless doesn't mean you can't drive. Homeless doesn't mean you don't have a driver's license. So they could show up and be homeless and have a car full of junk that they drive around in. So I just think those are issues that really need to be looked at, and I just don't think it's the proper use for a commercial building in a block that's having a lot of investment to the left of us, where the man is renovating that 6-story building into apartments, and the other man who renovated the building on the other side of this into the nail salon. I mean, the block is really coming kind of back. So I just don't think it's a great use for that building. That's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to say something? Or?
Sure.
So one of the things, the reasons why we chose this location too is there's the soup kitchen that's located right behind the building. St. Anthony's homeless shelter is right there also. The homeless know that that's a location that they can go to for a safe haven, and we're trying to expand that for them. Again, they say that 80% of all Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless, and we recognize that at Keystone Mission, and we're trying to give them that hope and give them that chance that they can have. To talk about Olive Street, I understand the troubles that went through Olive Street. I understand the reputation that was there at Olive Street. I want to reiterate that that will not be a homeless location again. That will be the distribution. But at the same breath, this is the same population that is going to St. Anthony's. This is the same people that are hurt and trouble that we're trying to help. And I understand all the concerns. I just don't see how a homeless shelter is going to even take away from the property when we're going to make sure that we keep that property looking as good quality as all the other buildings, keeping them up, making it clean. We're not going to it's not like we're going to have homeless sleeping outside the front of our building. We're going to make sure that they're inside. We're not going to be, our building is not going to be dirty. I think that there's a huge stigma out there with the homeless and with homeless shelters themselves. And that's one reason why I'm fighting for this and saying that this is a need for Scranton and this is a need for the area. It's not going to hurt anything. If anything, it's going to bring in better taxpayers that are going to come back with jobs and helping out the community.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to?
Hi, my name is Tom Wojcik. I own Tom's Garage.
Could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Okay, Tom Wojcik. I live at 627 East Warren Street in Dunmore, but I own the property 2 doors away at 519 Wyoming Avenue, who have an automotive repair and sales business. I went through the era with Community Intervention Center and Labor Ready, which moved out and moved over to someplace in Scranton, I believe. And the era when that was occupied by CIC and Labor Ready, there was a surprise for us every morning. I don't want to go into detail, but my building has been damaged, broken into, loitering. It was a constant nuisance. That's gone. And I want to reiterate the fact that the neighborhood is coming back. We have development across the street where Lackawanna College is thinking about developing the eastern side of Wyoming Avenue. We have the nail place, which is adjacent to my building. It really is, it's improving from what it was 20 years ago. And I just want to say that if we had these problems with this shelter on Olive Street, what's going to prevent that from happening on Wyoming Avenue? The reason they're leaving there is because the people complained. The neighbors all complained. Why would we want to bring that to 500 block of Wyoming Avenue where there are a multitude of investments?
I have a question for you,
I can't
Tom.
see any reason for it.
Aside from all these loiterings and break-ins, did it disturb your business? Did you lose any business as a result of Labor Ready?
I can't hear you.
Did you lose any business? Or are you aware of any of your neighbors lose any business as a
customers
result?
dropping off cars early in the morning, and they were afraid to drop them.
But did they drop them?
They would drop them later on in the day. And even in the evening, picking up a vehicle that was left for the day was a problem, especially at this time of the year when it's dark,
Are you aware of any of your other?
because of loitering and the caliber of the people that were
Have any of the businesses nearby you, I'm sure you have a relationship with some of your neighbors, have they reported any loss in business as a result of Labor Ready? I'm just asking about Labor Ready, because this is not going to be Labor Ready.
Well, they did when it was occupied by CIC, everyone complained.
Yes, but did they lose business? I know there's complaints, because
I don't know.
loiterers...
I don't have their financial records, but I'm sure they did. I did.
So you lost business as a result?
Yes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Tom, how do you spell your last name?
Voytek.
I have one witness. I don't know when it's appropriate to call the gentleman. Or he's still...
Can I ask a question of the CEO first?
Yeah.
Is there going to be any change from the hours from Olive Street to Wyoming? Because the loitering keeps coming up. Was that a result of different hours? Is the operation 24 hours now?
No, it's not.
It's not?
No, presently right now, it's during day hours of what we did. Again, I wasn't the CEO at the time when that was going on, but I can tell you that the loitering was taken care of. We got stricter, is what it was. We told, hey, listen, guys, you got to knock it off. This is what it is. I understand the concerns of the community, and our mission is we're the catalyst of the community, and to end homelessness, we got to work together as a community. I understand the differences. I can tell you, the concerns, from the gentleman before. I understand his concerns. I understand where he's coming from. But we're going to run this in a professional manner. Homeless shelters are not, just a fly by the seat of the pants. It's a professional business. And I think that's what we need to recognize, that we are a profession.
Thank you.
So your financing is strictly donors? You don't receive grants from the federal, state, local government?
We do not accept federal, state grants. We do have foundations that do donate to us, but majority of our funds come from private donors.
So what happens if funding ceases or lowers?
So
how do you maintain the standard of operation that you're presenting to us?
So for 12 years, we have shown consistently, the donations have been consistent for 12 years. Okay. So a valid question you ask is, so eventually, does everyone stop donating? What are you going to do? We actually have in the works right now how we're going to try to stay substantial to back that. we're going to mimic something that they do in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is the Clean Green Team, which is we hire teams that go out and they do recovery work, they do demolition, like simple taking out garbage, taking out that kind of thing, which supplements a lot of their programs the way they do that, plus it's also giving back to the community. One of the things I do want to add in the program that we're going to do, every guest that comes in, and our guests would be equivalent to like what you would call a client or one of the homeless members that come there. Any one of our guests that come in there are going to have to give back to the community. They're going to have to serve to the community. So on Saturdays, they're going to be doing service projects on Saturday, and on Wednesday night, they will be serving back to the community, because that's one thing that we believe in, is giving back.
I have a question about the security.
Yes.
Did you ever look into using the Scranton Police Department as a security? Because they do,
We do presently right now use...
like for this, I'm talking about for this new location.
Yeah, that's one of the ones we are considering. I can tell you that it's been unbelievable having the Scranton Police work with us right now. We do message and a meal in the evening, and they're there with us. I can't talk highly enough about them. They're amazing what they do, because they also act as not just security force, but they're also acting as one of the members of us, like, hey, listen, I understand and recognize the issues that are going on.
And you mentioned 24-hour security, so there would be for example, you use them, they'd be your resource officers or whatever you'd call them, every shift? Every police shift?
We're looking at nighttime right now, and then because on the daytime, we'd have a lot more staff there.
Okay.
To include like myself and the administration staff and everything. So there would be more staff on the daytime.
Nick, a woman, did you want to come up and speak? You raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Nikki Pimentel, and it's 204 Main Street, Luzerne, Pennsylvania.
Can you spell your last name for the stenographer?
It's P as in Paul, I M as in Mary, E N as in Nancy, T as in Tom, A L. I'm here tonight because this philosophy of not in my backyard.
I'm going to object with regard to standing. We have an individual that I don't even think lives in our county, let alone...
I have no affiliation with this gentleman.
What?
I have no affiliation with this gentleman.
And
I understand that.
only undermines the point.
But I believe that somebody who was formerly homeless should probably speak.
So you're speaking as an expert witness, basically?
Correct.
Well, I'd like to see the qualifications with regard to that.
Absolutely.
Please. I want a ruling with regard to standing. We have an individual that does not own property within the affected area, that doesn't own property in the Lackawanna County.
We had a lot of people speak in a former use with a drug rehab, so we should probably vote on whether we should.
Well, I do believe, and I could be wrong.
The board has discretion as to what they want to do. The board can decide between themselves.
If I can, just so I have... Yes, but I'd like it before a ruling, too. If I can, with regard to what I understand the testimony would actually be, possibly as to a need or the effect or any of those, or a beneficial use to it. What we're here for tonight is why this particular building at this particular address, what's physically wrong with this building that it can't be used for the uses in an IL district. So with regard to any expert testimony, if this person is an engineer, if they have some other planning criteria as to why this building with the uses, what we have after the city of Scranton, the council adopted, the mayor signed it, it said homeless shelters go to a CD zone. So what you have to do is you have to hit the 5 criteria as to what's physically wrong with this building before we talk about whether there's a need for it, not a need for it, what the beneficial uses are. None of that is germane. What you're going to vote on each one of those particular elements, let's assume I was here with and I have with some property owners, that it's a steep slope. We need relief 5 feet from the back because we have a cliff that goes down 20 feet. Well, you don't have anything like that. I asked the gentleman, is there any reason why this building can't be used for any of the uses in the IL district? No, there are none. There are none. So your testimony, it goes to those particular items in a variance. I know you know what the criteria is. I've come before you with regard to it, and the first thing I know Mr. Gatton says is, what's wrong with the building? Why can't you use the building for that particular use? That's what we're here for. You don't get to this testimony that's coming in. It's not germane to your vote. So my objection goes to one standing. They don't have a property interest. You have a counselor here that says you have to have an affected interest, and by that it means a monetary value. The people that I represent have substantial investments. I have several $100,000 invested within 3 blocks of it, but they have more. You have aggregate, they have millions of dollars invested. That's an affected property interest. Not that you live in another county.
Well, we understand. We understand.
And, yes, I've been on the board for 8 years now, and we'll allow testimony like this because it might, I'm talking.
With regard to.
Excuse me. It's my turn, please.
Mr. Jones, the zoning board shall have the authority
We have
to determine who has standing in each case. Let them determine.
Yes, there are concerns about the loitering issue. There are concerns about the congregating issue and the break-in issue, and I think that she has lived in a homeless shelter, and she could probably alleviate some of the stress or maybe answer some questions or concerns that people might have. I think that we should let her speak.
Well,
What is the board, yes, your objection is not, what is the board decision?
As to everything that you just said, that's germane to this site.
You're an attorney for the people that are business. This is the board, this is our decision.
At the time you were homeless, was it in Scranton?
As a matter of fact, it started when I was in Scranton, yes. And then there was no available shelter in Scranton. Therefore, I was moved to Luzerne County.
I think we got a mixed.
Do you want to vote?
Speaking for myself, I appreciate the situation that she's in and her availability to come here and speak tonight, but in this case, I have to agree with Attorney Jones. It's far out of the city. You know, if it was a neighbor in the city from West Scranton or East Scranton or South Side or West Side, I'd have a little more.
You're no.
So I'm a
Mr.
no.
Morris?
No, I basically let her speak. I say we let her speak.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Can't hear you.
You said yes.
I suggest we should let her speak.
Let her speak.
He says, yeah, let her speak. Mr. Marks? Let her speak. Ms. Newcomb?
I said yes.
Mr. Walsh?
So,
Majority. You
Go
can
ahead.
speak.
You may speak.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Pimenta.
Thank you. And I apologize that my presence here has caused such an uproar. And the only reason that I am here to speak is there seems to be a lot of concern about how the behavior or characteristics of the homeless will affect people's businesses. And I can tell you from my own experience, I was the type of person when I said not in my backyard, I meant it. I had no desire to, I would cross the street to avoid someone who looked homeless. Unfortunately, I was involved in an accident, did not have health care, and I found myself penniless without a place to live. There are problems amongst the homeless. I am not here to sugarcoat it. Our homeless shelter director once said, they're homeless for a reason. So there are many things that have to be addressed. And I understand that the community in which this shelter is being proposed is up and coming. One way to do that is to get the people off the streets. If you want nice, clean, safe streets, you need to give people the resources and the places to go to get the help that is needed. It is the only way for us to put an end to this epidemic that literally, when they say one paycheck away from being homeless, there are quite a few people who are one paycheck away. It is not easy for these people to find a place in which that they can find the resources they need. So a lot of them will bed down in doorways and near heating vents and under bridges and in parking garages and anywhere that they can find a place where they feel safe and they are out of the elements. What this proposes is to get those people out of those areas and provide safer neighborhoods. It also holds people accountable in making them aware of the fact that they need to be contributing members of society. I spent a year in a homeless shelter. I went from living in a house in Dallas to living in basement churches and sleeping on cots. I drove an expensive foreign car to sleeping in abandoned buildings and under bridges. It taught me a lot about opening my eyes in what needs to be done for what I really thought was a blight on society. And that is to give them a place to go, to get the resources, to get the help that is needed to get them off the streets. That was given to me. Here I am 12 years later, and I am gainfully employed. I have, held my own home. I have stable, shelter, and, I try to give back to the community that helped open my eyes. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak? You raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Henry, H-E-N-R-Y, Barilla, B-I-E-R-Y-L-A, 2126 Prospect Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm a resident of Southside Scranton, Pennsylvania. We've been in the city our family has been in that house for approximately 60 years in this time. I spent many a night sitting with the homeless at the Keystone Mission as a volunteer. I also consulted the mission in the last several years as a volunteer with extensive business background, building over 148 homes, financing over 4,000 construction projects in my career. My purpose of being here tonight is to attest that the mission has changed dramatically as far as management is concerned, the personnel, the staff. What was occurring on Olive Street is no longer occurring. The problems that were there with the homeless and the supervision was lax, very lax. I could attest to that personally. As I said, I spent many nights there interfacing with these people. I had people laying on the floor sleeping, looking for housing, people coming in looking for food, pregnant women coming in, their water breaking in front of me. I've seen pretty much everything. Now, the people that are in charge at this point in time, Justin, who I've met on several occasions, and we've talked, and other staff members, it is a complete new organization as far as I'm concerned. My extensive business experience over 40 years, and I consulted other companies as a consultant, would just attest to their ability as far as what they're doing at this time. From what I've learned and from what I've saw in the area, the Scranton area has approximately 350 homeless people. Now, that's not an official number from the mission. It's what I did on my own research. But people don't even come forward because if there's a female with children, they would sooner sleep on someone's couch in an apartment. They would sooner sleep in a car. And as far as the homeless people owning cars, I've not met one person, one homeless person at the Keystone Mission that owned a vehicle. I never did. As far as the structure is concerned on Wyoming Avenue, there's more than ample parking in the back The restrictions that the mission would put in place, on my suggestion, would be everything would be coming from the rear or the side of the building, if you will, if it was expanded, and parking would not be an issue there, nor would loitering be an issue on the front sidewalk on Wyoming Avenue. So many of the things that I heard tonight, I heard a lot of legal aspects. I have not heard, other than this young lady that was here, the humanitarian aspect of what's there. We're trying to do a good job. We're trying to go ahead and make it a better place for the homeless people. We understand the concerns of the business people that are there. We understand that you have great investment and your livelihood depends on it. But we also understand that we have a pretty good idea of how to handle the situation. Now again, I'm not on staff, I'm a volunteer. But anything I could do to support management or the staff, I will do that.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address, please.
My name is Phil Yevics, Y-E-V-I-C as in cat, S as in Sam. I live at 915 Quincy Avenue in Scranton. And I'm here this evening as a representative of the Scranton Area Ministerium. I serve as secretary of the organization. I'm not sure it meets Attorney Jones' criteria for standing, but we have been discussing the homeless situation in the area for over 4 years. And the first point I think that I can affirm on behalf of the ministerium is that it is a community problem. They are us, and that all of us are responsible for dealing with it. What we cannot address is the specific merits of this particular case. We simply don't know enough about that. But we have been participating for 16 months now in an informal coalition of faith-based groups that called itself the Greater Scranton Homeless Coalition. And the three principles that evolved out of monthly discussions over those 16 months, the first is that it is our responsibility, all of us, that the community needs to accept that responsibility for dealing with this people. The second is that there are existing organizations that are trying to address this issue. There is the Continuum of Care, which administers HUD money, the federal HUD money, and there's the Greater the Housing Coalition, which includes nonprofits that are service organizations that do not get HUD money, but still try to address the needs of that. And so it's important, I think, and as Justin has taken control of the mission, he has certainly sought to integrate their efforts into that larger community effort. That we think is critical. This is not something that one group can address on its own. And finally, the responsibility that the faith-based communities would like to help with is to accurately represent information from those organizations which are trying to address the needs of the homeless and the legitimate concerns that so many people in the community have. There are real concerns, but there are also real benefits to be gained if we can successfully address the needs of these people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I have my witness.
Sure. You raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address, please.
John Virali, 50 Finn Street, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
V is in Valley, A is in Apple, R is in Run, A is in Apple, L is in Larry, Y is in Yellow.
Now, Mr. Virali, I know that you've testified and the board's aware of who you are, but this is a written record. If you could just give a little bit about your background and what your expertise is in.
Okay, I've been a professional planning consultant for 45 years. I have my master's in city and regional planning from Rutgers University. I have my American Institute certification, which gives me professional standing in all 50 states. I've drafted ordinances for probably 70 or more communities throughout northeastern Pennsylvania, and have provided testimony as an expert witness before zoning hearing boards and other public forums.
Now, you were here tonight and you heard the testimony, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're familiar with the City of Scranton zoning ordinance, is that correct?
I am.
And are you familiar with the criteria under the MPC in the City of Scranton as to variance and the grounds for variance?
Yes, I am.
Could you please, have you formed an opinion with regard to the testimony that you've heard from the applicant and the other witnesses, and with regard to the criteria for variance under the MPC and the City of Scranton ordinance?
Yes, I could do that. I'm listening to the testimony tonight. A lot of the testimony has centered on the operation and the impact of the proposed use. But before you get to the operational aspects, I think the first thing that the Zoning Hearing Board has to decide is, does it meet the 5 criteria that's in the zoning ordinance to qualify for the special exception approval? Now, there's 5 of them, and the 3 that I think that are most prominent or pronounced in this particular case is, 1, is there a hardship? 2, does that hardship result that there's no way that the property can be used in conformance with the zoning regulations? And 3, what impact does it have on the character of the neighborhood? No one has provided testimony that has even touched upon any of those 3 issues. And without addressing those 3 issues, I think any of the operational aspects of the shelter are beyond discussion, because you have to get past the criteria that's in the ordinance. And I think one of the things that Attorney Jones pointed out that's very important also is when council created a zoning district which would allow a homeless shelter as a special exception use, they were making a legislative determination that any shelters being proposed in the city of Scranton would have to locate in that district and still meet the special exception criteria for that use. So I think when you look at a use variance to this degree where no testimony has been provided that there is a hardship, that you're overstepping the legislative intent of city council by creating and addressing the use and providing a use in which it would be a location in which it would be permitted. I think it would have a impact on the characteristics of the neighborhood. I walked the area and looked at the sites, and we talked about loitering, and as much as they have indicated they will try to control that, the thing that I noticed that on the particular block, a lot of the businesses are dependent upon pedestrian traffic, walking in, parking for your car, going to the services that are available. And from experiences I've had in dealing with homeless shelters outside of the area, the number 1 issue in terms of operational aspects is really being able to control the loitering. And although everyone does the best to their ability to control that aspect of it, once a person is on the sidewalk in the public right-of-way, he or she is free to occupy that space.
Now, you've mentioned, do you have any knowledge or observations with regard to any other homeless shelters in any other communities?
Yes, I did the zoning regulations for homeless shelters just recently in the town of Bloomsburg. And within that area down there, they had operational hours that were not 24/7, where they were open for emergency shelter. They did provide transportation to and from the shelter for people that required it, and worked with other community organizations, the YMCA, Gateway Keeper, and a number of other local organizations that had operational programs to assist the homeless.
Now, with regard to the city of Scranton, you're familiar that by zoning amendment number 8, ordinance number 46, that the city of Scranton has actually provided for this use in the CD district. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And once again, for the board, there are certain objective and subjective criteria even with regard to that use for special exception. Is that correct?
That's correct also.
And with regard to those particular criteria, have you heard any testimony tonight that even vaguely addressed any of that?
No, I haven't heard any testimony that touches on the aspects of what the requirements of the zoning ordinance are.
Thank you. I have no further questions for the witness.
I just have a question, for a general question. Everyone's saying it's a homeless shelter. Well, I think everyone would agree that it doesn't belong in a residential neighborhood. It's not going to be in a residential neighborhood. You don't have to answer my question, but I just want to put it out there. Where else would anybody suggest that a homeless shelter be put?
If I can address that, the city of Scranton, through its planning department and through its council, and then under the MPC, it had public hearings where the public addressed that particular issue as to where homeless shelters should be. So after your experts, I don't know if were you here in '98, Mr.?
I was.
Yes, so it went through your planning, and in fact, when you take a look at the ordinance that was adopted by the city of Scranton, this particular use was put into the CD district for the simple reason that the planning commission and the planning departments had made that recommendation to the city council, and then the residents of the city of Scranton got to weigh in, so they put that into the CD district. There isn't any testimony as to why this use isn't in that CD district, which abuts the IL district, which abuts some of the other particular uses that the director had talked about. But to specifically answer your question, yes, the city of Scranton has provided a large area for that after it went through the entire planning process under the state law with your own experts. Mr. King is actually available. So the CD district is the succinct answer.
Do you have any knowledge of where the closest CD district to this location is?
Do I know where that is?
Do you have any knowledge, of where the closest CD district to this
Sure, it's
location?
right next to the IL district. If we can, do you have the zoning
How
map?
far away, though? Like, how far away?
Oh, a block?
A block.
A block.
Okay.
Yeah. The CD district, just for everybody's knowledge, is the downtown commercial district. So it covers pretty much what people would think of as the downtown.
Just for clarity, we're not here for a special exception. We're here for a variance.
Yes.
For a variance,
Yes.
correct. This is a use that is not allowed in the IL zone. It is allowed by special exception in the CD zone.
Right. Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing and I'll conclude, because we've been here long. I just want to say to the gentleman that spoke, to Attorney Jones, to University of Lackawanna Community College, and to the gentleman that owns the auto place along with everybody else, I'd love to partner with all of you. It sounds like Attorney Jones has the same passion that I do also with this, and I love him to work with me in helping this go, no matter what the decision goes. I love everyone. I was put on here to make sure that I can help everyone, and whatever decision goes, I would love if the attorney, along with the university, along with the businesses, would work together to accomplish this goal of trying to end homelessness, because this is something I'm passionate about. This is something that I will, to the day that I die, I will make sure that that lady that just spoke before us will not have that, no one else will have that hardship that they had to go through. So, including yourselves, I'd love to work with you guys. So, thank you, and I appreciate the time that you guys spent and the time that you spent listening to us too. So, thank you.
If I can, just for record keeping, I'd like objectors number 2 to reflect the ordinance number 46 of 1998 that provides for this use in the CD district.
We have it, Mr. Jones.
Oh, you do?
Attorney Penatar, did we figure out the parking before we go any further?
The parking,
Yeah, do we have a certain number of spots? Did we kind of classify it?
we had one for each employee,
Okay.
plus one, or what, I know I read it to you before, but I'll read it again.
Thank you.
If I can, while he's doing that, I do have an objection with regard to it. My client was given notice with regard to a use variance. If we're getting into parking and dimensional variances, there has been, with regard to this application, which wasn't made part of the record, there's absolutely no plans that were attached that show any parking whatsoever or any other dimensional variances. So I actually think we're here just on a use variance, and it's highly prejudicial to my client if we're getting into parking, because we can scour that ordinance from now to doomsday, but it has absolutely no criteria with regard to a variance that wasn't articulated for any dimensional ones. You're trying to force it into uses. This is not a use in the IL district. So it's not going to be there.
I think similar to the first case, we need to possibly figure out the parking before we address it.
If they were before you with regard to a full application and with regard to a
Correct,
parking plan,
Right.
and if they asked you for, they'd have to ask you for relief under a particular ordinance and identify the section with regard to it. That's why I keep saying, when you look at your advertisement, the most that this could be is a use variance. So, it's not there with regard to, the reason why they put it in a CD district is you have completely different parking criteria. That you have a series of parking garages and open parking spaces, both public and private. There is generally no requirement whatsoever in a CD district. So in this particular area, if you were even trying to bastardize the application process and put it into that, you'd have to go to the criteria for special exception on that. You've now withdrawn that out of a particular zone, the CD zone, and you're not going to find any, you can't fashion what you're trying to do because it's not in that area. Additionally, I drive by that area every day. I know that particular area where they're talking about it. That goes down, I'm going to guess, 15 feet where they must have demolished the building. They haven't put anything with regard to the building as to, and I don't know this, but I bet dollars to donuts, there's no elevator, there's no handicap access with regard to that. So you're putting in, however you'd fashion parking, which I don't think you could ever justify or do, then you're going to have to show your handicap access on this non-existent plan and an application that isn't made part of the record. They're going to have to show the handicap elevator that's going to take them from 15 feet down to wherever in the building without any building plans where they're putting the 50 people, I assume putting it on one particular floor, and then address the 600 square feet requirement for each one of those. The building's not large enough, and dimensional variances aren't in front of you. What I believe is in front of you is the use variance, and the gentleman is, I applaud you for your candor. He's told you they have no evidence as to why this building cannot be used for the uses in the IL district. That's what you're to vote on. If they put in a case with regard to the use variance, you could do it. So this is unlike, all the other ones where they, community center, and Mr. Penadar can say, yeah, it hooks to this use, it hooks to that. You're trying to fashion something that the city of Scranton, through its council, legislated. They said put it in a CD district, and they gave you rules and regulations in a CD district with regard to that. I just happen to know on parking, it's probably zero in a CD district because we all know that there are several parking garages. So I don't see how you're fashioning that, but I guess my objection goes to you're trying to fashion now dimensional variances or change this application. There's absolutely no parking plan whatsoever.
Mr. Marks, to answer your question, it's one off-street parking space for each employee on duty at any one time, and every two residents of a type reasonably expected to be capable of driving a vehicle.
Yeah, so I guess we would have 114 parking spaces, because as Mr.
Jones, please, you made your point.
No, I get to...
No, all right.
Well, I'm going to add to the record, Mr. Nicholas put in that just to be homeless, and we're all aware you could still have a car. I realize that in certain instances
there was enough testimony as to how many cars.
That's why they put it in a CD district, so it would be 114 to answer your question.
And, of course, he's making his interpretation, you make yours.
I do have some concerns with the application. We generally hold 99% of the people here to details that need to be in an application, and there are no measurements for, are these going to be individual rooms, or is it going to be a dormitory style, your bedding?
So the way, because of how we looked at other missions, it's going to be 3/4 level high walls, so there's room for security purposes and also privacy.
So, Dan, just to carry that point a little farther, now that, and Don, does that come under where it does have to meet the 600 square foot per unit?
I think it's more akin to our ordinance as a boarding house, which requires about 120 square feet per resident.
And you're putting 25 and 25?
I'm sorry.
Are you putting 25 male and 25 female? Is that what I'm saying? Or?
Yes.
There's just some blank spaces in the application, I feel, that aren't here that we should see.
Is it okay if I table, get that information that you guys are looking for along with Attorney Jones, and come back?
Yeah, you could always reapply. I have an objection to that. But
Right, and I'm going to echo that. The application as it is before us is requesting a use variance. It's very clear. There's nothing else in here. Variance is checked. It says that the present use is vacant after a homeless shelter was scratched out, and then it says that the proposed use is a homeless shelter drop-in center. And then their justification, it says see attached, and there's a couple paragraphs about what they propose to do. There's nothing in here about what hardship they've experienced that makes it an impossibility to use this building for anything else. And that's what we're here tonight for. And I don't think a continuance is worth your time. I don't know if if there's a question about anything else on this application, that's what we have to talk about today. And there's really nothing else.
I think the board could vote on the use, and if they come back with a plan that requires dimensional variances on the parking or the size of the rooms or any codes, we could visit that again. But there's no reason to put them through that exercise unless the use is going to be allowed.
I agree.
if I can, do you have an opinion, Mr. King, with regard to whether they met the criteria for a variance?
That's not for him to decide, that's for the board to decide.
I asked him if he has an opinion. He's your planner. He's the city planner. But that's all right. I believe that's prejudicial, that particular ruling. I can ask the city planner for his opinion.
Don, did I understand you say about a block away, he'd be able to open this without coming in front of us?
In the CD, well, it would still
No,
come
it's still
before the
coming
board
for
as a
us.
special exception.
Okay.
There's still criteria and a special
Yeah,
exception.
and they would still have to meet the criteria on the
And
special
and to
exception.
piggyback on what you said, it seems like they are here only for like literally a block, maybe not even a full block. I also wanted to say for the record, as you're talking about the zoning ordinance over and over again, that talking with board members, past and present, and zoning officers, also both past and present, that our zoning ordinance book is extremely outdated. Not that it has anything to do with this, but it is outdated, and I just wanted to state that for the record, as well as Sean's. It really is merely a block away. And it seems like we're only here because of a block.
No, with regard
That was just
to
my opinion. I didn't...
I understand that, but with regard to the question as to where the district is, that's where the district is. Then you have to locate a particular property in there. Then you have to hit the objective and subjective criteria with regard to that in one of the largest districts in the city of Scranton. So it's not a matter of proximity to that other district. It's what's you have to locate it and then hit the criteria for it. Additionally, just by way of housekeeping, and that has me somewhat concerned about this other type of dialogue. Last time I was here, there was an abstention on something, and I do want to, at least for the purposes of the record, if there are going to be any abstentions tonight, was there any dialogue prior to this with regard to any persons with any interest in this property? And if so, I'd like that they be identified. whether
Explain that a little farther, if you could.
I'm concerned with what Mrs. Newcomb said with regard to with whom she was talking to, with regard to...
All I stated was that we agreed that several zoning officers and myself both agree that this zoning book is out of date. How old is that? You would know.
It's
'cause you know, right?
1993, so it's about 25
yeah,
years.
that's definitely
26
out of
years
date.
old.
So all I stated was that it was out of date.
Yeah, I didn't know if any of the current property owners, whether the director or realtors or anyone else with whom you were talking, or any other board member. So that's what I construed you were doing, and if that were, obviously rather find it with an abstention in this form than me to
No,
try
I
to
don't need to
pursue that
abstain
somewhere
because all I
else.
said was that I've spoken to zoning
I-
board members in the past and in the present, and former, not present zoning officers, because I never discussed it with him, that this book is outdated. And I don't need to abstain because of that comment.
And I didn't speak to anybody. The only person that I speak is to God himself, who get directions where I'm going to go.
I only said that because he seems to be repeating the same thing about the ordinance over and over again. That's why.
Yes, I tend to do that. This is the zoning board, and we, whether our private feelings are, we do have to follow the rules that council made with regard to the zoning district. These are objective criteria. You know, is there something physically wrong with this structure that it can't be used for the use in the IL district? That's your vote. And you're not doing him a service because I'm not going away and I have that in the record, you know, that it's there. So it just prolongs this. We all know what it is. You've done this job longer than I have, so.
Ready to take a vote?
Yeah, any other testimony? Sean? Yep.
So we're gonna vote on the use and then,
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
What is the motion?
We're making the motion to vote on the use.
Vote.
On the application as it
The
is.
use variance.
Yeah. Ms. Newcomb?
I vote yes on the use.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Gattens?
This is a tough vote, and we had a couple cases similar to this where you have to take your personal feelings out for the need and everything, but I'm going to vote no on this.
Mr. Chairman?
yes, 4-1, you've been approved for the use.
Thank you.
Good luck, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, it goes nowhere.
I understand.
And you can't win.
You do what you gotta do.
Yeah,
God bless you.
he does.
Go ahead, take a break. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Who does?
Take 5.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
That building used to be it was diamond hollow glass, I think was the last use that was in there.
Something like 20 years ago, this drop in shop.
Yeah, Bill. I think at the corner where Meals on Wheels is now. Oh, that was something. Yeah, not this particular one. Thank you. Downtown commercial. Yeah, actually it means commercial / downtown. So, yeah, it'd be,